The summer sun beat down on Arlington National Cemetery, casting long shadows across rows of pristine white headstones. The air carried a mix of heat, reverence, and quiet anticipation as visitors gathered around the tomb of the unknown soldier. Families, veterans, and tourists stood shoulder to shoulder, their eyes fixed on the lone sentinel pacing with meticulous precision. Ethan Caldwell, a 28-year-old tomb guard, moved like clockwork. His navy blue uniform was flawless, each brass button gleaming, his kepi hat sitting perfectly atop his head, sunglasses concealing his eyes. Every measured step, every crisp turn, echoed discipline honed by years of grueling training. Today he guarded not just a tomb, but the memory of fallen soldiers and the legacy of his older brother, Michael, who never returned from Afghanistan. Among the crowd, Tyler Grayson, a 13-year-old with designer sneakers and a custom t-shirt, was anything but respectful. His blonde hair perfectly gelled, phone in hand, he scouted for the perfect viral moment. Next to him, his parents, Jonathan and Lauren Grayson, were absorbed in their own devices, Jonathan firing off emails on his phone, Lauren adjusting her designer sunglasses. To them, Arlington was just another stop on their social media-worthy vacation. Tyler's attention, however, was fixed on Ethan. He whispered to himself, "This is going to be hilarious," and a mischievous grin spread across his face. A half-empty soda can dangled in his hand. With no thought for the sacred space, he flicked it toward the tomb guard's polished boots. The can hit the pavement with a dull thud, splashing sticky liquid across Ethan's immaculate shoes. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Cameras and phones captured every moment. Some visitors recoiled in shock. Others murmured disapproval. But Ethan didn't flinch. Not a twitch. Not a blink. His jaw tightened ever so slightly, but his posture remained perfect, each step unwavering. Tyler laughed loudly, zooming in on Ethan's boots for his phone's camera. "Check this out! This guy's a total statue," he yelled, expecting cheers from the crowd. Instead, he received glares, whispered admonishments, and the quiet tension of people sensing trouble. Ethan's eyes, hidden behind dark lenses, burned with a quiet fury. Years of discipline, combat experience, and personal loss had prepared him for worse. But this was a different kind of challenge. The stone-cold sentinel's silence was about to speak louder than any scream, and Tyler had no idea the storm he had just unleashed. The crowd shifted uneasily. Parents pulled children closer. Tourists lowered their cameras. Tyler, oblivious, held his phone higher, narrating loudly for the perfect clip. "You'll look at this statue guy. Not even blinking," he shouted, laughter dripping with entitlement. He didn't see the lines of veterans standing nearby, arms crossed, eyes hard and disappointed. Some muttered to one another, shaking their heads at the boy's audacity. Ethan continued his march, each step crisp, precise, echoing across the marble plaza. His movements were flawless, a living testament to the men and women whose names would never appear in headlines but whose sacrifices were written in the blood and soil of battlefields far away. Behind those dark sunglasses, his jaw was tight. He felt the sting of disrespect, but years of training told him, remain professional. Ignore the provocation, yet every fiber of him burned with the injustice of the moment. Tyler, encouraged by the lack of reaction, stepped closer to the rope barrier, a smug grin on his face. "Come on, move, you robot. I'm just trying to get a better shot," he called. The words sliced through the reverent silence. An elderly couple nearby shook their heads, exchanging worried glances. A young mother whispered to her children to be quiet. The murmurs of disapproval grew louder, but Tyler's attention remained fixed on Ethan, his entitlement blinding him to the sacredness of the space. Jonathan finally looked up from his phone. "Tyler, get back here," he barked, voice tight with irritation rather than understanding. Tyler waved him off, eyes gleaming with mischief. "Relax, Dad. I'm just having fun. These guys work for us, right?" The words hung in the air like a slap. Ethan's gaze, brief but piercing, locked onto the boy. He'd faced insurgents, gunfire, and chaos, but this arrogant kid thought the world owed him respect for doing nothing at all. Tyler's next move was deliberate. He spotted a half-empty soda can in his hand, a leftover from lunch. A wicked grin spread across his face. "This is gonna be epic," he whispered. He tossed it toward Ethan's boots. The can hit the ground with a splash, soda spilling across Ethan's polished shoes. Gasps erupted from the crowd. Phones captured the act from every angle. Some shook their heads in horror, others whispered prayers, but Ethan remained a statue. His eyes burning behind those lenses, jaw tightening imperceptibly. The young boy laughed louder. "Yo, check this out. I'm going viral for sure." He raised his phone to record Ethan's reaction, expecting a flinch or stumble, something to mock. Instead, the tomb guard continued his march, each step echoing discipline and calm authority. The juxtaposition was electric, a child seeking chaos, a sentinel of sacrifice unmoved. Nearby, a Vietnam veteran in a weathered cap whispered to his wife, "That kid's got no respect. Someone needs to teach him a lesson." Others nodded, sensing the potential for disaster if the situation escalated further. Ethan's restraint wasn't weakness, it was centuries of tradition and the weight of countless lives entrusted to his care. Every soldier who had stood here before him had faced similar tests: provocations from ignorance, disrespect from entitlement, challenges to patience. Tyler wasn't done. He leaned over the rope barrier, sneering, "Hey, soldier boy, gonna clean that up or what?" The crowd murmured disapproval, some stepping back to shield their children. Ethan paused his turn ever so slightly, posture still perfect. His gaze swept over the boy and his parents. He didn't shout, didn't retaliate, but the aura of authority emanating from him was palpable, a silent warning that disrespect had consequences. Jonathan and Lauren tried to intervene. "Tyler, stop this!" Lauren shrieked, clutching her designer handbag, face pale with embarrassment. Jonathan added, "You can't behave like this in public." Tyler waved them off, convinced he was untouchable, convinced that wealth and privilege shielded him from consequences. Ethan's training kicked in. He knew the situation could spiral into chaos. Yet he also knew that some lessons were bigger than protocol. One swift, decisive act could stop the misconduct and teach respect, not through anger but through authority and presence. He tightened his grip on composure, every muscle controlled, every thought measured. The crowd held its collective breath, sensing the moment was about to reach a tipping point. A park ranger pushed through, but Ethan was already in motion. Not out of impulse, but with calculated precision. He stepped slightly toward Tyler, not to threaten but to reclaim control. The air seemed to charge with tension. Tyler's smirk faltered, his entitlement beginning to crack under the silent, commanding authority of the tomb guard. In that moment, Arlington National Cemetery was more than a monument. It was a stage for a lesson in honor, discipline, and respect. A lesson Tyler had no choice but to learn, whether he liked it or not. The crowd tensed as Ethan, the tomb guard, finally acted. His movements were smooth, precise, and deliberate, a trained soldier reclaiming order in the face of blatant disrespect. Tyler froze mid-step, phone still raised, as Ethan's polished boots clicked closer. There was no shouting, no wild gesture, just the quiet, commanding presence of a man who had faced real danger and loss far beyond a spoiled child's imagination. With one swift motion, Ethan extended his gloved hand and carefully took Tyler's phone, the device slipping from the boy's grasp as if gravity itself obeyed the sentinel's authority. The screen cracked audibly when it hit the pavement, the tiny shards reflecting the sun like splintered diamonds. Tyler's jaw dropped, eyes wide, shock overtaking his usual arrogance. You broke my phone," he yelled, voice cracking between disbelief and panic. "That's 2,000. Ethan didn't speak. He returned to his post, boots clicking in perfect rhythm, posture flawless. Yet the silence around him amplified the gravity of the moment. The crowd held their breath, some whispering praise, others shaking their heads in astonishment. Veterans in the audience nodded subtly, recognizing a rare mix of discipline and swift corrective action. It wasn't aggression, it was authority, and it carried the weight of decades of sacrifice. Nearby, Park Ranger Inspector Laura Bennett pushed through the spectators, her uniform crisp, radio crackling with urgency. "Situation at the tomb." "Kid crossed the line," she reported, voice calm yet firm. The sentinel responded. Parents in the crowd murmured anxiously. Tyler's father, Jonathan, stormed forward, red-faced and indignant. "This is outrageous. That soldier assaulted my son. Do you know who I am?" Laura didn't flinch. "Sir, your son threw a soda can at a federal officer and crossed a restricted area." "That's assault and trespassing on federal property. You're lucky the sentinel didn't escalate further, he's a kid." Tyler's mother, Lauren, clutched her designer handbag, whispering, "You can't treat him like a criminal." Laura's gaze softened slightly but remained firm. Ma'am, age doesn't excuse disrespecting the tomb. This is a sacred space. Your son defiled it. Tyler's eyes darted around the crowd. For the first time, he noticed the faces. Disappointment, anger, and quiet awe for Ethan. His usual sense of entitlement faltered. He wasn't the center of attention anymore. He was the object of judgment. Inside the Arlington security office, the Graysons sat tensely across from Colonel Margaret Hayes, commanding officer of Ethan's unit, and Dr. Emily Carter, a specialist in adolescent behavior. Margaret, steel in her gaze and decades of service etched in her posture, didn't mince words. Mr. Grayson, your son assaulted a federal officer and disrespected a national monument. This isn't about money, influence, or convenience. It's about respect, something he clearly lacks. Jonathan attempted to bargain. Surely we can make amends financially, pay for the phone, cover any damages, and keep this quiet. Margaret's eyes narrowed. This isn't a transaction, Mr. Grayson. Your son needs to understand the weight of his actions, the lives behind the uniform he mocked. Monetary compensation won't instill that. Lauren's protest faltered under Margaret's steely resolve. Emily leaned in, calm but unwavering. Tyler will participate in a 4-week immersive program here at Arlington. He'll work with the grounds crew, meet veterans, and learn the significance of the tomb. Compliance isn't optional. This is about education and respect. Tyler's face paled. Community service? Cleaning a cemetery? Under the relentless Virginia sun? He could barely imagine it. The first week was grueling. Tyler traded designer sneakers for sturdy boots, his custom t-shirt swapped for a work shirt. He swept pathways, polished headstones, and tended to the grounds with no leniency from the veterans overseeing him. Their eyes, seasoned and unyielding, reflected the consequences of carelessness, disrespect, and entitlement. Every discarded leaf he picked up, every path he swept, reminded him of the world beyond his bubble of wealth and privilege. Emily arranged meetings with Arlington veterans. Clara Thompson, a 90-year-old W-2 nurse, shared stories of unimaginable courage and loss. I held boys younger than you as they died, she said, hands trembling yet voice steady. Tyler listened, eyes wide, realizing the depth of sacrifice and the human cost behind every polished monument. These weren't stories for entertainment. They were lessons etched in blood and memory. By the third week, Tyler attended a Memorial Day ceremony. He watched Ethan march with the same precision he had once mocked. But now each step spoke of honor, of discipline, and of the lives sacrificed for freedom. Tyler understood the gravity of the uniform, the ritual, and the man who had held it with unwavering focus despite personal loss. His embarrassment transformed into humility, his arrogance replaced by reflection. On the final day, Tyler met Ethan in a quiet office overlooking the cemetery. The man he had once disrespected stood in civilian clothes, yet every movement, every posture reflected military bearing. Tyler swallowed hard. Ethan, I'm sorry. I didn't understand what you do, what this place means. I treated you like a prop. Ethan studied him silently. Tyler continued, voice quivering but sincere. I thought I'd look cool online. I didn't think about the soldiers you honor, or my actions. I've learned so much from veterans here. I want to make it right. Ethan's stern expression softened. My brother was a soldier. He died in Afghanistan. The tomb I guard isn't just a monument, it's a promise. When you threw that soda, it wasn't just me you disrespected, it was all of them. Tyler nodded, understanding dawning. A handshake followed, firm, genuine, a bond of recognition and newfound respect. The story of Tyler's misstep and redemption went viral, but not for laughs. National outlets highlighted his journey from entitlement to humility. His parents, humbled and shaken, began reevaluating their approach to privilege and parenting. And Ethan? He returned to his post, boots polished, steps precise, the silent guardian of sacrifice, embodying the lesson Tyler and the world would never forget. Tyler's first day of community service began before sunrise. The sun had barely touched the Arlington National Cemetery when he was up, trading his designer sneakers for sturdy boots and his flashy clothes for a simple work shirt and jeans. The heat and humidity hit him immediately, far harsher than any air-conditioned room or luxury hotel he'd been used to. He muttered under his breath, cursing every moment of this punishment, but there was no one to hear except the veterans watching his every move. Clara Thompson, the 90-year-old World War II nurse, greeted him at the maintenance shed. Her hands were weathered, her voice firm yet kind. "Young man," she said, "today you start understanding what it means to respect those who came before you." Tyler rolled his eyes initially, thinking it was just another lecture, but Clara's gaze held the weight of decades of sacrifice. Every story she shared was real, raw, and unforgettable. The first task was simple yet humbling, sweeping the pathways leading to the tomb of the unknown soldier. Tyler's hands blistered under the handle of the broom. The veterans didn't coddle him. They observed silently, correcting his posture, his technique, his focus. Every misstep was met with a quiet shake of the head, a silent reminder that privilege didn't apply here. Tyler's frustration grew, but so did the awareness that he was not in control of this environment. By the second day, Tyler was assigned polishing headstones. Each one bore the name of a soldier he'd never meet, yet whose life had been sacrificed for his freedom. As he scrubbed, he felt a strange connection, a weight in his chest he couldn't explain. He began to understand that the uniform Ethan wore wasn't a costume. It was the symbol of countless sacrifices. He remembered Ethan's unwavering composure when the soda can had hit his boots and realized the guard's discipline was born from real experiences, not showmanship. Emily Carter, the psychologist overseeing Tyler's progress, spoke to him daily. "This isn't just about punishment," she explained. "It's about teaching you the value of respect, humility, and responsibility. Every veteran you meet has lived lessons you can't find in your luxury lifestyle or online games." Tyler nodded reluctantly, beginning to see the larger picture. During the third week, Tyler assisted in a Memorial Day wreath-laying ceremony. He stood in the crowd observing Ethan march with his usual precision, the silence of the ceremony pressing in around him. Tyler noticed the pride in the veterans' faces, the reverence of the families, and the gravity of each step. For the first time, he felt awe rather than boredom. His earlier mockery of Ethan as a statue seemed childish and cruel. Clara shared her most personal story during a break. "I held boys younger than you as they died," she said, voice trembling but unwavering. Tyler felt a lump in his throat. The sacrifices he had mocked were real, tangible, and unimaginably heavy. He realized that Ethan's discipline, his silence, and his composure were a tribute to lives lost, not a performance for public spectacle. By the fourth week, Tyler's attitude had shifted significantly. He woke up early, not out of resentment but with a sense of responsibility. He greeted veterans with respect, learned the stories of soldiers who had never returned home, and approached each task with care and thoughtfulness. Even mundane chores like sweeping leaves or polishing plaques became acts of understanding and reflection. Emily arranged a final meeting between Tyler and Ethan in a quiet office overlooking the cemetery. Tyler, now humbled and aware of the consequences of his actions, apologized sincerely. "I didn't understand before," he said. "I treated you like a prop. I see now that this is about the lives and sacrifices you honor every day." Ethan studied him for a moment, his expression unreadable, then nodded. "My brother died in Afghanistan," he said quietly. "Every step I take here is for him and the ones who never came home. What you did disrespected that, but now you're learning. That matters." Tyler extended his hand, shaking Ethan's firmly, feeling a mix of relief, respect, and newfound maturity. By the end of the program, Tyler's transformation was visible. He no longer saw the tomb as a backdrop for social media stunts. He saw it as a place of honor, courage, and sacrifice. The lessons he learned, humility, discipline, and respect, would stay with him far longer than any viral clip ever could. Tyler's fourth week of community service began under a golden sunrise. The cemetery was quiet except for the rustle of leaves and the occasional chirp of birds. He no longer arrived begrudgingly. Instead, there was a cautious determination in his step. His designer sneakers had long been replaced with worn work boots, his flashy t-shirt swapped for a plain blue work shirt. Each day, Tyler became more aware of the small, deliberate actions that went into preserving Arlington. Every sweep of the broom, every polished plaque, and every cleared path carried a sense of purpose he had never felt before. Emily Carter, the psychologist, observed him closely. "Tyler," she said one morning, "it's not just about following instructions. It's about understanding respect and the consequences of your actions. How do you feel about yesterday's work?" Tyler paused, gripping the broom. "It's different," he admitted. I feel like what I do actually matters, and I don't want to disappoint anyone here. The days were long and the work physically demanding. He lugged water buckets to clean the monuments, swept pathways covered in fallen leaves, and polished countless headstones. The veterans who oversaw the tasks didn't coddle him. They expected precision, focus, and humility. Each veteran shared stories, some heroic, some heartbreaking. Tyler listened intently, beginning to recognize that the sacrifices behind each story were real, not just words in a history book or a video clip. One afternoon, Clara Thompson took Tyler aside. "Do you know what it was like in Normandy?" she asked softly. "We had boys younger than you fighting in unimaginable conditions. They didn't get vacations or video games. They gave everything they had for a country that might never even thank them." Tyler's hands trembled slightly as he absorbed her words. The tales weren't abstract. They were full of emotion, courage, and raw human endurance. He felt the weight of history settle on his shoulders. Meanwhile, Ethan Caldwell continued his duties at the tomb. Tyler observed him closely during a Memorial Day ceremony, watching as Ethan's movements were precise, deliberate, and full of quiet dignity. Each click of his polished boots resonated with Tyler in a way it never had before. The monument was no longer a backdrop. It was a living tribute to sacrifice. For the first time, Tyler understood that discipline and respect weren't optional. They were essential. Back in the maintenance shed, Tyler began taking initiative. He corrected small errors in his own work, asked questions about the stories behind certain headstones, and began helping newer volunteers understand the importance of each task. Emily noticed the change. "You're starting to internalize this," she said. "It's no longer punishment. You're learning responsibility and empathy." Tyler nodded, a shy smile crossing his face. During the third week, Tyler was paired with Sergeant Linda Hayes, a retired Army veteran. To assist in cleaning and restoring older headstones, she told him about soldiers who had been forgotten over the years, their names fading into obscurity. Tyler was moved. "We can't let them be forgotten," he whispered. "Every name matters." Sergeant Hayes nodded approvingly. "Exactly. And now you understand why what you did to Ethan was more than just disrespecting him. It was disrespecting them all." As the program neared its final week, media coverage intensified. Clips of Tyler's initial disrespect and Ethan's calm, decisive response had gone viral, sparking debates about entitlement, parenting, and respect. Tyler initially felt embarrassed seeing his face on national news, but he realized the coverage also showed the importance of redemption and learning from mistakes. News anchors interviewed Emily and Colonel Hayes, highlighting Tyler's journey as a lesson in humility and growth. Tyler's parents, Jonathan and Lauren, were humbled as well. No amount of wealth or influence could shield them from witnessing their son's transformation. They participated in discussions with Emily, learning how to better guide Tyler with empathy and discipline. They saw firsthand that real lessons could not be bought. They had to be earned through experience, reflection, and humility. The culmination of Tyler's journey came with a final private meeting with Ethan Caldwell. Tyler entered the office, heart pounding, aware of the gravity of the moment. Ethan, dressed in civilian clothes but carrying the presence of a soldier, extended his hand. Tyler grasped it firmly. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice steady but sincere. "I didn't understand. I treated you in this place like a joke. I see now that this is about honor, sacrifice, and respect." Ethan studied him for a long moment. "It's not just me you disrespected," he said. "It's every soldier who never came home, including my brother. What you did mattered, but how you learn from it now matters even more." Tyler nodded, swallowing hard. "I promise I'll do better. I'll share what I've learned. I want others to understand too." Ethan finally smiled faintly. "Then you're starting on the right path. Respect is earned, not given. Keep listening, keep learning." Tyler left the office feeling a mix of relief, pride, and newfound maturity. He wasn't just a spoiled kid anymore. He was someone who had confronted the consequences of his actions and grown from them. By the end of the program, Tyler became an advocate for respect and honor. He started a blog to document his experiences, sharing the stories of veterans, the importance of the tomb, and the lessons he learned about humility and responsibility. His social media presence shifted from shallow viral stunts to meaningful stories, reaching other kids who might also be struggling with entitlement. The Grayson family returned home forever changed. They no longer measured life in wealth or social status, but in character, responsibility, and understanding. Tyler's journey was not just a personal redemption, it was a lesson for everyone who had witnessed it, showing that even the most entitled behavior could be transformed through reflection, discipline, and empathy. And at Arlington, Ethan Caldwell continued his solemn march. Each click of his boots carried not just the weight of the unknown soldiers, but also the quiet impact of a young boy learning that respect, honor, and sacrifice were far more valuable than fleeting likes or viral fame. Tyler's story continued to ripple far beyond Arlington National Cemetery. Clips of his initial misbehavior and Ethan Caldwell's calm, authoritative response had gone viral, sparking debates across social media, news outlets, and classrooms nationwide. Yet what captured the public's attention most wasn't the confrontation, it was the transformation. Tyler, once the entitled Arlington kid, was now becoming a symbol of accountability, growth, and respect. On social media, hashtags like Respect the Fallen and Tomb Guard Lesson trended. Videos showed Tyler's community service work, sweeping pathways, polishing headstones, and listening attentively to veterans' stories. News anchors highlighted his redemption arc, emphasizing that even spoiled or careless behavior could be corrected through guidance, discipline, and genuine reflection. Interviews with Colonel Margaret Hayes and Dr. Emily Carter detailed the structured program Tyler had undergone, illustrating the importance of experiential learning over punishment alone. "It's about shaping character," Emily explained. "Tyler is learning that respect and humility cannot be bought. They must be earned and demonstrated." Tyler's parents, Jonathan and Lauren, watched the national coverage with mixed emotions. Initially, they had been embarrassed and defensive, but seeing their son's genuine growth shifted their perspective. They realized that money and influence could never replace personal accountability and moral education. Jonathan began holding weekly family discussions at home, using Arlington as a metaphor for discipline and integrity. Lauren, inspired by Emily's approach, implemented lessons in empathy and patience, understanding that parenting required active engagement rather than passive indulgence. Meanwhile, at Arlington, Tyler returned for his final week of community service with renewed determination. He was paired with veterans and groundskeepers, all of whom had witnessed the viral incident firsthand. They welcomed him cautiously at first, unsure if his transformation was sincere, but Tyler's consistent effort, humility, and eagerness to learn soon earned their respect. One afternoon, while polishing the tomb of the unknown soldier, he paused to reflect. The engraved names of fallen soldiers seemed to whisper their stories, names that represented real sacrifice, courage, and human life. Tyler felt a profound connection he had never anticipated. Ethan Caldwell observed silently from a distance. He had returned to his ceremonial duties, boots polished, movements precise, every step carrying centuries of military tradition. Though Tyler's journey had begun with disrespect, it was now ending with genuine understanding. Ethan knew that patience and professionalism had made the difference. Sometimes silence, discipline, and example teach more than words ever could. A significant moment came when Tyler joined a Memorial Day ceremony alongside veterans. He helped lay wreaths, stood in respectful silence, and watched as Ethan completed his flawless 21-step march. This time, Tyler wasn't focused on recording videos or gaining likes. He was absorbing the atmosphere, understanding the history, and internalizing the honor associated with the place. The crowd, aware of his transformation, offered nods of approval rather than disdain. The once entitled boy now stood humbly, learning the meaning of sacrifice firsthand. Outside Arlington, Tyler's blog gained traction. He wrote candidly about his mistakes, the lessons learned from veterans, and the importance of respect for those who serve. His posts included detailed accounts of stories shared by World War II nurses, Vietnam soldiers, and contemporary service members. The blog quickly became a resource for educators, parents, and young readers seeking guidance on discipline, empathy, and civic responsibility. Tyler's writing showed that mistakes, when acknowledged and corrected, could become powerful teaching tools. The media continued to follow Tyler's journey. National talk shows invited him to discuss his experience, framing it as a lesson in accountability and humility. Tyler spoke candidly, admitting, "I didn't understand the weight of what I did. I thought it was a joke. Now I know it's about respect. Respect for those who sacrificed everything for our freedom." The nation watched a spoiled, entitled child transform into a young advocate for honor, discipline, and integrity. Tyler's story also sparked conversations in schools. Teachers used his example to initiate discussions on entitlement, social responsibility, and historical awareness. Students debated the consequences of disrespecting traditions, the importance of learning from mistakes, and how privilege could be guided toward meaningful contribution. Tyler himself visited several schools, sharing firsthand accounts and encouraging students to reflect on their own behavior. His honesty and humility resonated, inspiring many to consider the broader impact of their actions. At home, Tyler's parents continued their transformation. Jonathan began volunteering at local veteran organizations, understanding firsthand the value of service beyond financial wealth. Lauren became an advocate for teaching children respect for history and civic duty. The Grayson family no longer measured life by status, possessions, or social media clout. They measured it by growth, empathy, and contribution. Meanwhile, at Arlington, Ethan returned to his post, boots clicking rhythmically, maintaining his unwavering focus. The crowd that day included Tyler, now attentive and respectful. When the ceremony concluded, Ethan approached him briefly. "You're learning," he said simply. Tyler nodded, eyes glistening. "Yes, sir. I'm trying." That brief acknowledgement reinforced the lesson Tyler had carried through each day. Respect is earned, honor is demonstrated, and personal growth comes from reflection and action. By the end of his program, Tyler had become a symbol of redemption and responsibility. The once entitled kid had learned the value of humility, the weight of history, and the importance of honoring those who serve. Arlington National Cemetery remained a sacred place, but it now held a new story, one of accountability, reflection, and transformation that inspired countless others. The nation watched as a young boy's reckless actions led to a powerful lesson in discipline, respect, and civic awareness. Tyler's journey proved that even the most privileged could learn humility, that mistakes could lead to meaningful change, and that true honor lies not in personal gain, but in understanding and valuing the sacrifices of others. And at the tomb of the unknown soldier, Ethan Caldwell continued his solemn march. His steps echoed not just through the cemetery, but through the hearts and minds of those who had witnessed the entitled boy's transformation. Each precise motion carried centuries of sacrifice, a silent testament to the lessons learned, and the enduring power of respect, discipline, and the human spirit. The weeks following Tyler's community service at Arlington were transformative in ways he had never imagined. No longer the entitled, attention-seeking boy who had thrown a soda can at Ethan Caldwell, Tyler had begun to internalize lessons about discipline, respect, and sacrifice that would stay with him for life. His days were filled with the hum of quiet work, sweeping pathways, polishing headstones, and cataloging names and stories of the soldiers buried there. Each action, repetitive and demanding, carried a weight of significance that no game, social media post, or luxury item could replicate. Tyler's interactions with veterans and Arlington staff became pivotal. Men and women who had served in every major conflict from World War II to Afghanistan shared their first-hand experiences with him. Clara Thompson, the 90-year-old World War II nurse, continued to captivate him with tales of courage under fire. Her trembling hands and resolute voice made Tyler realize the fragility of life and the enormity of sacrifice. Each story chipped away at his former arrogance, replacing it with a deep, contemplative understanding of honor. The media continued to track Tyler's progress. His blog gained momentum as he wrote candidly about his experiences, reflecting on mistakes and emphasizing respect and humility. Teachers incorporated his journey into lessons about civic responsibility, parenting, and social behavior. Social media, once the platform for his viral misbehavior, now amplified his growth. Tomb Guard lesson and Respect the Fallen were shared thousands of times, becoming a symbol of what accountability and reflection could achieve. Tyler's transformation wasn't just a local story. It became a national example of how one incident could spark meaningful change. At Arlington, Ethan Caldwell resumed his solemn duties. Though he rarely spoke publicly, His presence continued to command respect and attention. Tyler watched Ethan march each day, now with eyes full of admiration rather than mockery. He began to understand the gravity of Ethan's role, not as a performer for tourists, but as a living tribute to the men and women who had sacrificed everything. Each 21-step march, each turn, each pause, echoed centuries of history and commitment, and Tyler felt a sense of responsibility to honor it. The most significant moment of reflection came when Tyler was invited to participate in a Memorial Day ceremony. Standing alongside veterans, he helped lay wreaths, observed the minute of silence, and felt the weight of the occasion settle heavily on his shoulders. The crowd's attention shifted between him and Ethan, noting the once ignorant boy standing humbly, now fully aware of the significance of the tomb. Tyler's parents, Jonathan and Lauren, watched with pride tempered by humility. They had witnessed the transformation firsthand, realizing that their son had gained something far more valuable than material wealth, a sense of moral responsibility and empathy. Tyler's final meeting with Ethan Caldwell cemented the lesson. Sitting quietly in a small office overlooking the cemetery, Tyler and Ethan discussed not just the incident, but the meaning behind the tomb of the unknown soldier. Ethan shared the story of his brother Michael, whose memory had fueled his commitment to service. Tyler listened, absorbing the weight of loss, duty, and honor. When Ethan extended his hand, Tyler grasped it firmly, a gesture of respect and understanding that marked a definitive turning point. For the first time, Tyler truly comprehended that respect is not demanded, it is earned. That honor is a responsibility, not a privilege, and that humility is a strength, not a weakness. Tyler's journey resonated far beyond Arlington. Schools, youth groups, and community programs began referencing his experience as an example of redemption and learning from mistakes. Social media, once a tool for vanity, became a platform for education and awareness. Tyler's blog included video interviews with veterans, reflections on his community service, and insights about the importance of personal accountability. Children and teens saw that even those with privilege could learn humility, and adults recognized the significance of mentorship and guidance in shaping behavior. Meanwhile, at Arlington, Ethan's steadfast presence continued to inspire visitors. His boots clicked in precise rhythm across the cemetery grounds, his uniform reflecting the sun, his posture unwavering. To the untrained eye, he was simply performing ceremonial duties. But those who had witnessed Tyler's journey, and the countless other visitors who paused in respect, saw him as a symbol, a reminder that true discipline, honor, and commitment often manifest in silent, steadfast action rather than words or applause. Tyler's parents, reshaped by the experience, altered the way they approached their lives. Jonathan devoted more time to volunteering and teaching values of respect and empathy in his company. Lauren became an advocate for responsible parenting and civic education. Their family dynamic shifted from entitlement to accountability, from indulgence to guidance. Together, they embraced a philosophy that possessions and social media clout are fleeting, but lessons in integrity and respect endure. The story concluded not with dramatic confrontation, but with quiet reflection and enduring impact. Tyler returned home, forever changed, carrying lessons learned at Arlington into every aspect of his life. Ethan continued his solemn duty, his steps a rhythmic tribute to the fallen, each click of his boots echoing through the hearts of those who understood the weight of his responsibility. The tomb stood as it always had, a sacred reminder of sacrifice, honor, and the profound lessons that even one misstep, when corrected with guidance and discipline, can teach a nation about respect, humility, and the human spirit. By the end, it was clear. Some lessons aren't taught in classrooms or earned through wealth. They're learned in moments that demand reflection, courage, and the willingness to change. Tyler's story became a living example of that truth, inspiring countless others to reconsider the value of honor, responsibility, and personal growth. Arlington National Cemetery remained a sacred space, but now, it also held a modern story of redemption and the enduring power of respect. The weeks after Tyler's community service left ripples far beyond Arlington. His journey, once a viral scandal, had transformed into a story of redemption. Schools incorporated his blog posts into lessons about respect, responsibility, and civic duty. Youth groups used the incident as a case study, showing how even small acts of thoughtlessness can affect communities, and how accountability can restore trust. Tyler had become a living example of what happens when privilege is met with discipline and guidance. At home, the Graysons' family dynamic shifted dramatically. Jonathan and Lauren no longer indulged Tyler's whims without reflection. Vacations and social media outings were replaced with meaningful discussions about responsibility, empathy, and humility. Tyler's experience had revealed the consequences of entitlement, forcing the family to reassess their values. Even simple routines like helping around the house now carried the weight of lesson and growth. Back at Arlington, Ethan Caldwell continued his solemn duty. Visitors observed the precision in his steps, the gleam of his uniform, and the unwavering focus of a soldier committed to honor. Those who had followed Tyler's journey saw more than ceremonial marching. They saw a man whose discipline inspired reflection. Veterans, families, and tourists alike recognized that the tomb of the unknown soldier wasn't just a monument. It was a symbol of sacrifice, courage, and the power of silent strength. Tyler returned to Arlington for several follow-up sessions, this time with purpose and understanding. He assisted with ceremonies, interacted with veterans, and documented the histories of fallen soldiers. Each task reinforced the lesson that actions, no matter how small, carry meaning when guided by respect and intent. Over time, he developed a profound admiration for Ethan and all who serve at the tomb. The once entitled boy now approached each day with thoughtfulness, understanding that honor is not performative, but cultivated through consistent effort and awareness. The media covered Tyler's transformation extensively. Social platforms were flooded with supportive messages praising his accountability. The hashtag #DauriTombGuard lesson continued to trend, not as ridicule but as a symbol of redemption and growth. Commentators emphasized the importance of teaching young people the value of discipline, empathy, and understanding history firsthand. Tyler's story became a tool to inspire conversations about respect, humility, and the weight of legacy. Ethan and Tyler met one final time before Tyler's formal program ended. In a quiet office overlooking Arlington's rolling hills, Ethan spoke candidly about his brother Michael and the personal significance of guarding the tomb. Tyler listened intently, absorbing every word. When Ethan extended his hand, Tyler shook it with confidence and sincerity, a gesture that symbolized not just apology, but understanding and connection. That handshake marked the end of a chapter and the beginning of a lifelong appreciation for respect and sacrifice. The tomb remained as steadfast as ever, its presence a constant reminder of the cost borne by soldiers past and present. Tyler's transformation illustrated that lessons in honor often come unexpectedly, in moments of confrontation, reflection, and humility. The sacred space of Arlington had become both a site of history and a classroom for personal growth. Tyler carried these lessons beyond the cemetery, sharing them with friends, classmates, and online followers. Ultimately, the story of the entitled kid and the tomb guard became more than viral content. It became a narrative about human potential, accountability, and the power of personal change. Tyler learned that respect is earned, courage is quiet, and legacy is preserved through the steadfast actions of those who honor it. The encounter, once a moment of conflict, evolved into a lasting lesson, one that continues to inspire reflection, humility, and a deeper understanding of the values that sustain society. In the end, Arlington National Cemetery stood unchanged in its solemn beauty, but within its grounds lingered a modern tale of growth, redemption, and the enduring power of respect. Tyler's story, Ethan's dedication, and the lessons of sacrifice became intertwined, proving that even the smallest disruptions, when met with integrity and guidance, can lead to profound transformation. Some things, like honor, discipline, and respect for the fallen, transcend generations, leaving a legacy that teaches everyone who witnesses it the true meaning of service.